No one noticed the man at first. He sat alone in the corner of the cafe, hoodie pulled low, shoulders wide but slouched, hands wrapped around a chipped mug like he was trying to disappear into it. The police officer didn't notice him, and for reasons no one could explain, that officer decided this man didn't belong there. What happened next would shut the cafe down, in a career, and expose how dangerous it is to judge someone by how they look. Because the man being humiliated wasn't powerless. He was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and the officer had no idea who he was humiliating. It was just afternoon. The cafe was half full. Students, office workers, a couple on a first date pretending not to check their phones. Soft music played overhead. The man in the hoodie had been there for nearly 30 minutes. He hadn't caused trouble. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't even spoken to anyone. He ordered a black coffee, paid in cash, left a tip. But to the police officer standing near the counter, something about him felt wrong. Too big, too quiet, too out of place. The officer had been sent in after a minor call. A shop owner nearby had reported someone suspicious hanging around. Nothing serious, just protocol. And then the officer's eyes locked onto the man in the corner. The hoodie, the beard, the muscles barely hidden beneath worn fabric. The officer frowned. "Sir," he said loudly, breaking the calm of the room. "Can I see some ID?" Every head turned. The man slowly looked up. His eyes were calm, respectful, tired. "For what reason?" he asked. The officer didn't like that question. "Don't get smart with me," the officer snapped. "We've had reports. You've been sitting here a long time." The cafe went silent. The man glanced around, confused. "I'm just having coffee," he said evenly. "I paid. I haven't bothered anyone." The officer stepped closer. "Stand up." The man hesitated, not in fear, but in disbelief. "Officer," he said calmly, "is there a problem?" That's when the officer raised his voice. "You people always say that." A few customers exchanged looks. "You people," someone whispered. The man stood up slowly, and when he did, the room felt smaller. He was taller than everyone expected, broader, solid, like someone carved from stone, but carrying himself gently. The officer's posture stiffened, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. "What's under the hoodie?" the officer asked. "You hiding something?" The man exhaled. "No," he said. "I'm hiding from attention." The officer laughed, loud and mocking. "Well, you're doing a terrible job," he said. "You don't look like someone who belongs in a place like this." That sentence landed hard. "Hands on the table," the officer ordered. Gasps rippled through the cafe. "For what?" the man asked, still calm. "For refusing to comply." "I've complied with everything," the man said. "You haven't told me what I've done wrong." The officer leaned in close so everyone could hear. "People like you come in here thinking the rules don't apply to them." The man's jaw tightened just slightly. A young woman finally spoke up. "He hasn't done anything," she said. "He's been quiet the whole time." The officer turned on her. "Ma'am, stay out of police business." Then back to the man. "Empty your pockets." The man slowly reached into his hoodie and placed his phone, wallet, and keys on the table. The officer picked up the wallet. He opened it and froze. The officer stared at the ID, then looked up, then back down, then laughed nervously. This isn't funny," the officer said. "You think this is a joke?" The man tilted his head. "What's wrong?" he asked. The officer held up the ID. "Dwayne Johnson," he scoffed. "Like the movie star?" "Yes," the man replied simply. The officer shook his head. "Yeah, right." A man near the window squinted. "Wait," he said slowly. "Isn't that?" The officer snapped the wallet shut. "You expect me to believe you're the Rock? In a hoodie? Drinking?" The officer cleared his throat, his voice smaller now, lacking the commanding tone he had carried just minutes before. "Well, if you are who you say you are," he stammered, "you should understand we're just doing our job." The man stepped closer, not threatening, just present, calm, unwavering. "No," he said evenly, "you weren't doing your job. You were showing power. You were humiliating someone because you thought no one would stop you." The cafe fell utterly silent. The hum of the espresso machine, the clinking of cups, all faded into the background as every eye fixed on the pair. Even the barista stopped mid-pour, frozen. The officer swallowed hard, suddenly aware of the weight of his actions. His confidence, the same pride that had made him bark orders moments ago, crumbled under the truth. This wasn't just a man. This was someone the world admired, someone whose life had been lived in the spotlight, yet who still carried himself with quiet dignity. I didn't know, the officer mumbled, almost to himself. His voice lacked conviction. He wanted to assert control, but control had slipped through his fingers. The man nodded, not smugly, but with a gentle understanding, almost like he had seen this countless times before. I know, he said softly, but ignorance doesn't excuse arrogance. A few customers whispered among themselves, some recording on their phones. One by one, the realization spread. The man in the hoodie wasn't just big or intimidating. He was Dwayne Johnson, and the officer had humiliated him for nothing. The officer stepped back, rubbing the back of his neck. His authority had been challenged in the most public way imaginable, and he could feel the judgment of every person in the room. He wanted to retreat, but pride held him frozen. The man picked up his coffee and, without another word, sipped slowly. Calm, composed, unshaken. His presence alone reminded everyone what true power looks like, and it's not about uniforms or loud voices. Finally, the officer turned to leave, muttering an awkward apology that fell flat. He could feel the weight of eyes on his back, the shame sinking in like a stone. The cafe slowly returned to its normal rhythm, but nothing felt the same. Every cup of coffee, every casual glance, now carried the memory of that moment. A man humiliated for being misjudged, a truth laid bare, and a reminder that appearances can be deceiving. And somewhere in the back of the officer's mind, he knew this encounter would haunt him, not because of fame or status, but because it revealed something far more unsettling: the ease with which people judge without understanding. The man in the hoodie stood, casually adjusted his sleeve, and walked out into the afternoon sun. A simple man, with a colossal life behind him, leaving everyone behind to rethink the way they see the world. The cafe slowly exhaled. And for those who witnessed it, the story wasn't just about a famous man or a prideful officer. It was a lesson in humility, restraint, and the quiet strength of being truly human.